Okay guys, I'm back and I hope you got to do the Forsythia watercolor that we did the other day. I was in my yard yesterday and I sat out there and painted and I found quite a few things in bloom actually. Kind of surprised me. So last time we talked about we're going to do violas this time, and so I went outside and I kind of wanted to show you the viola bloom. Has a long stem. That's one thing you notice about it. It has a long stem. Then the bloom kind of has like two rabbit ears and then two side petals and one at the bottom. There's a little orange stamen in the middle. Can you see that? Maybe this one, nope, it's not easier. You can kind of see the rabbit ears. These are kind of fatter rabbit ears, and then the side one and another side one on the down one. Now look at the leaves on this. The leaves are a little bit of an oblong. The edges aren't quite smooth, but that's a hard thing to paint, so we're going to go ahead and paint them smooth. And the viola has a long stem, so that this one you can see would stand up from the leaves quite a bit. Okay, now this is, I wanted to show you how the leaves grow. There's not just one stem, they kind of all grow from the base, but the blooms grow on all sides. So we don't just put a bloom here and a bloom here. We can if we choose to, but on the actual plant, there's a bloom on this side, on this side, on this side, and on this side. And I think it looks like more blooms would have been coming on this plant. I want you to kind of look at the root too, because that's kind of interesting. Sometimes it's fun to actually add that root system onto our painting. So, okay, so today we're going to be painting, right now for the violas, we're going to be painting with greens, purples, pinks, and a little yellow. So if you have your paper and your pens ready, this page just kind of shows what I did yesterday and saw out in the yard that was in bloom. And so here's one of the violas that I did, and here's another viola. So we're going to just turn the pages here and then start our viola or violas. So remember, we're going to remember the shape of what we just saw. We're looking at the color, and the color is kind of I see purple, I see pink, I see blue, and all of those colors are in varied shades on this little bloom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the purple. Let's see, sometimes I turn my paints around and then I can't find what I'm looking for. So I'm getting a little bit of water on my purple colors, and I'm going to first paint the little rabbit ears. And they look just quite a bit like rabbit ears on the top here. Now, do you see how I left a white spot there? That's okay to do if you want. And if you want it different, then you can color that completely in. I kind of like to leave some of those, I call them highlights. Okay, so I have my rabbit ears, and I noticed on this, that the tops of the ears, these rabbit ears are a little wider than I did. They're a little wider in the middle right there than I had on mine. I'm going to widen them. And they didn't come to a complete point. They kind of rounded up there. So I'm changing that just a little bit. So now I'm going to leave a space open here in the middle so that we can come back and put the yellow and orange that's in there for the stamen. But I'm going to come with these two side petals, and they kind of look like oblongs. So we're going to just bring a little more color out to that side. And you see how I'm kind of leaving the middle a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to come over on this side and do that same thing. The side leaves are quite wide. They're actually not wider than the rabbit's ears. They're just a little more round. Okay, so now I've got another one, and I like to kind of mix my colors, so I am going to come back here and add me just a little bit of blue while they're still wet. And if I do, depending on how much gets in there, sometimes I'll bring it back with my brush, but right now I'm just kind of dabbing it there in the middle, and that is just going to give it a little bit of dimension to have a little more color there. Now, when I started, I said purple, pink, blue. I'm wishing this guy would open up a little more so you could really see him. But it's the 5 petals. These guys are often standing up like that. But I even saw a little pink in there, so while my thing is still wet, I'm going to go choose a little pink. And if you don't have pink in your palettes, you can put a little bit of white with your pink or red, and that will kind of create a little bit of pink. And if you don't have that, you actually could put a little bit of yellow with your pink, and it's going to give you a little peachy color, and that with the purple might be quite pretty. Okay, now I'm going to come back and I'm going to do this bottom petal, and to me the bottom petal has more width than any of the other petals. It's kind of a wide guy, and it's across from the 2 rabbit ears, remember. So I'm just going to kind of make it in that space there. You saw that I added a little bit of, or I still had pink on my brush is what happened there. And so I was able to start that leaf with a little bit of pink. Now you can see that I just gave the little center a little more purple. There. So we can't put the middle in that's yellow or orange. We can't do that until it's dry. Otherwise it will seep through the purple, and we may not like that color. But we won't have the definition. That's the most important thing, is if we did it now, it would bleed into the petals, and then you wouldn't have a definition in your middle. So we talked about how this was attached to the plant. This one is, but if I attach this one right to this plant, it's pretty tall above the leaves. So, and you can see I think I'm just gonna go between the petals and bring a stem down. Now again, another plant that I brought in from outside were some trees that were in bloom, the fruit trees. This particular tree is called a peachicot tree. It's a blend between a peach and an apricot. And it's our first to bloom in our yard. And maybe later this afternoon we could maybe do another painting with it. Okay, so what I wanted to do right now was to just get a little bit of green on. Now, look at that. Look at that stem. I see brown, I see yellow, I see green. I'm actually going to highlight, well, I have a different set. Oh no, here we go. I'm going to give this stem a little lightness. And I'm actually just going to kind of bring the stem over on the side and have it start poking out on the side. I just think that's kind of a little more gentle. And if I went straight down, you can bring it straight down too. You can bring it over on the side, however it is that you want. And that's the fun thing about our pictures, guys, is you do not have to paint exactly what Grandma's painting. You can paint anything you want the way that you want, because the way that Grandma paints is not necessarily the right way. And the reason I say that is because there isn't a right way in art. However you decide you want your picture to be is the right way for you. Now remember, we talked about these leaves, and they're kind of interesting. I'm putting the flower down for just a minute, and I'm starting on the leaf, and you can see it's even a little more round than I put there. But I put that one there. I think we talked about how the leaves are connected to the stems, and we see it can go on any side of the stem. On this side, it can come over here, it can be here, and it can even go behind the flower. So I'm going to just make a cute little guy behind the flower. It's going to be just a little bit darker. And I say that only because of, he's kind of in the, you might say the shadow of this guy. But what I'm thinking is, because he's behind the stem, I really can't see him super well. So I am just going to leave it at that for right now. Now I want to come back in on this leaf that we were doing. And remember, we talked about the edges are jagged, and that's not easy to do. You can kind of sometimes put a little color there and it gives the same impression. And if you're really good, you could take your brush and do little tiny dabbles like that. But these little dabbles are really, really quite small. Oh, there's quite a bit of blue on my brush. I'm going to bring a little bit of green in. It's really a spring green. Now, when I say a spring green, to me, a spring green is a green that has lots of yellow in it. Later in the year, we get more of darker foliage like this guy in the back, but I don't know if it's in contrast to the snow that we've had for the winter, or I think it's more really the hue of the color. And it is just a lot of yellow, which is just gorgeous. So you'll probably hear people say that all through your life. Oh, that's a spring green. That is a beautiful green. If I was to tell you what my favorite color was, I don't know. Would some of you know what color would be my favorite color? Well, I think it depends on the day what my favorite color is. I quite like the color chartreuse. Chartreuse is a green with a ton of yellow in it. It's quite a bright color. Now I put blue there, and I see more brown down here and more green, but I'll be adding things to that to create a little more. Remember how we did on our other painting? The bottom was dark, the top was light. I'm just put a little bit of darker on the bottom there. And I am just gonna, I think you probably remember from my last one that I like a lot of color, and I'll even put color that you just don't see with your eye in some of my work. And so that's kind of where I'm going right now, is I'm just going to add, sometimes it's nice to add color right as you're working, because then they can bleed together. And sometimes it's nice to let your leaves get a little more dry and then add the color after that. And I never really think about it. I just kind of go with how it's going when I'm painting it. So right now you can see that I'm got some green there. It's still quite wet, so I'm going to wait for just a minute. And then I'm going to come back. Look, I'm going to try to put little texture on the edge of this guy, because he's almost dry. Can you see that? Just very slight little texture there that gives a little bit of points on the edge. And it's just, like I say, just really just almost, you almost can't tell it's there. Okay, I'm going to find me some pink and add just a little bit of pink to some of these leaves. And I can add it at the end of the leaf or kind of on the side of the leaf. And it kind of, I'm looking and I'm thinking, oh man, that pink is kind of going brown. And isn't that okay? Because look, there's a lot of brown in here. I'm going to add just a little bit of yellow to kind of bring my leaves alive. I don't know if you could see that or not, but I could see it, and it just kind of made it, oh man, kind of brighter. Just kind of made it come a little more alive. Okay, so that is, or that can be, our total picture, unless we want to, and I think I'm going to bring something here and just bring a little bit of it under, because there you won't be able to see a lot of it the way this is, but I'm going to do that. And then I kind of like this little, I kind of like that little right here, the root, so I'm actually going to put a little, let's see, I'm actually going to put just a little bit of brown here. Oh, my browns are, oh, look at that, I like that. Ah, I like that a little bit. Oh man, I'm liking that. Now, there's a little bit of root on here. There's one root here, one root here, a root here. So I think I'm going to add, just for composition, a little root. I'm going to try to not have my root be very wide, but that doesn't always pan out. I don't know if you could hear someone past honking their horn. Ooh, there we go. Now I'm seeing, when I get the root on there, I'm thinking, I think I want the stem to show up just a little bit more, that it's separate from the root. I don't know what everybody's honking at. Okay, woo, that brought a lot of brown in there, and that's okay. I wasn't thinking I was going to make that dab so wide, but that is just okay. Now, when I'm looking here, I'm thinking, I think I maybe want a little bit of blue in that. There, isn't that nice? Oh, that's really nice. I'm gonna bring a little bit of blue up here. Yep. And maybe be able to add just a tad. There we go. To the root. Okay, now when I'm looking at it, I'm seeing, so we've got the root on, we've got the leaves on, they're kind of round, we've got the flower. Now some of them have two flowers, so you can decide, do you want to add another flower to this? And if you do, I think you could add a flower over here on this side and fill in this space here, or you could add a taller flower and you wouldn't be able to do all of the flower, but he would be a little taller than this guy. Again, you can do whatever you want. You could even bring a flower over here. So I'm trying to decide, do I want a flower on this? As I'm deciding that, I'm looking at these leaves and they're not wet anymore, so what I put on them now, well, they're just a little bit wet, is actually going to probably not bleed in as much, and it might just stand. Oh, this one is quite wet. So I put a little darker there because the leaf, and this one I'm going to put a little darker here because it's kind of wrapped around the stem a little bit. And that just kind of gives us, and then this little guy who's behind isn't even noticed yet. So let's just make him show up. Yeah. And I think it's showing up, but I don't know that it's looking like it's part of our plant. So, ooh, there's a hair on there. Okay, so I'm going to give him a little yellow. Now to me what it looks like is, it looks like perhaps this little guy, this little leaf here, might not be as alive as these other. But I do like the contrast to these others, so I'm going to leave him darker like that. And I just think I'm going to bring another little stem up here. I'm going to bring it up pretty high. Okay, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 leaves. I've got 1 flower, and that makes 6. And I guess this stem actually could be another 6, 7. That would make 7, and that would be quite balanced. But this guy, I've already added the stem, so I kind of got to follow through now. I want that stem to actually be quite a bit lighter or not so green. So I'm just going to see what I can do there. I might bring just a little bit, and he's just going to stay green, quite green. Okay, so I'm going to go back and get us a little bit of purple for this other violet. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this violet from the side. I wish, and let's see if I can do this one. Yes, this one. Okay. Can you see if I move this leaf, this violet kind of hangs down on his stem. So I'm going to kind of bring him down a little bit like that. And then you can't see the leaves or petals. These are petals now. Exactly how they are because they're kind of folded up. And so that just allows me to just make up what I want the petals to look like. And I'm going to go with a little bit of pink here. So there's a little bit of contrast. I'm going to bring that one down and not really, I'm actually going to bring some of that over here. So we've got a little highlight going here. I quite like that down by the stem. So I'm going to give every petal just a little bit on its edges. And sometimes that's hard to do unless you have a really small brush. So this is the dagger brush that I showed you, and it gets to a point, as you can see, and that makes it so easy to work with it. But I'm guessing that you guys, I don't think your paints have, I know your paints don't have this kind of brush. So you can still do what you want with your kind of brush you have. You just, okay, now to me that kind of livens it up. I don't know that I want to add a whole lot more pink, but that kind of, wash that through, kind of just brightens up what we're seeing a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to leave that guy the way he is. Not real happy with the stem here. It's kind of green, but I think one thing I did see that I didn't talk about is, and maybe we can't see, but maybe we can see on this one, there are two little leaves on the side of this, and these aren't as bright green as they were originally, but I'm going to come in and again, I probably would do better if I did this when it was dry, because it might mix in, but I'm okay with that. I think I'll just bring some interest there. And that color that I just brought in, it's very much a yellow green, and I think he's very vibrant. So this leaf was kind of looking washed out. Looks like my water, when it dried, it looked a little more washed out than I was thinking it would. So I'm going to come back in and liven him up just a little bit with some fresh paint. I did talk about how I like the spring green, so I'm trying not to get away from the spring green, but I kind of want them a little livened up a little bit. Ooh, that's going to be nice when it gets, that's going to be nice. This little guy back here is part of this leaf, and I kind of wanted that to show just a tad more. I don't want to go all the way with the green because it's awfully wet over here. That will just kind of dry. Oh, down here, the red that we put in is quite faded. So here we go. We're going to add just a little bit. Just a little bit. I'm going to do that to the bottom of this. Sometimes it's hard to do those kind of things when you're the detail, little details don't always, as you have a fine point brush, those little details are quite hard to get in your painting. But I'm pretty happy with this guy. I hope you're happy with yours, and if you're not done yet, keep working. But I'm going to turn this video off and go send it to you guys. Okay? Okay, love you all. Happy painting. Oh, you know what I forgot? Wait, I'm not going to turn off yet. I forgot the middle of the viola. And I'm just going to go like that with it. Okay. There you go. Love you guys.